What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Dudes Who Bet Daily, August 24th, 2022. Coming off an absolute heater of a week. Papa Dude, your baseball was on fire last week. We ended the week 12-5, up over $1,000 off a $100 base bet. I got to know, did you start? Are you calling your boys still? Are you changing the process here?
The problem is he's back in school. I can't talk to him on the day of the games now. So I waited till about 9:30 last night and texted him, and he was waiting on the text, and he fired it right back. So he agreed. There's not a lot in baseball today to get excited about. So we're taking kind of a little gamble here. Not a real risky thing, but still not a lot I like today in baseball.
It's actually one of those days in the horse racing world as well. We had actually a pretty big day at Park yesterday. It was interesting for a Tuesday, some pretty good races. Now we got Saratoga. We're rained off. No steeplechase race. The feature was 1 mile and 3/16 on the turf. So we're going 1.25 miles on the mud now. Aaron, how do you attack a card like this? I mean, obviously it's a little tough for us. I did end up with a horse, but it is tough for us because analyzing the price a horse is going to go off at is awfully difficult when you have all these horses coming off or all these races raining off the turf. What do you do on something like the feature here? The John's Call, 1.25 miles, 6 horses, all turf horses, all going on the dirt.
You play a horse that you don't really like because it went off. That's what I did. I was going to try to beat Tide of the Sea in that race. Didn't really like them. But now that they're on the dirt, you said it. You look at the 5 horses or 6. I think there's 5 or 6 that are left in it. And it's like, well, Tide of the Sea last time out didn't run great over the dirt, but did at least show that he could pick up his feet over the surface. The rest of them, you have no idea. So I put Tide of the Sea on top, thinking, hey, get in front, and these other ones don't want to run on it, and they just kind of run in place. I went like 2 or 3 deep, thinking, God, if somebody can run on the dirt, they'll probably beat him. But, you just don't know who it is. So, yeah, that's what you have to do. You just have to completely adjust. And like I said, I was totally against Tide of the Sea. Now I've landed on that horse. Some of the other ones weren't so bad because you had some main track only entries, and you kind of lean on them. And, there's 1 or 2 others that weren't main track entries, but you can see that dirt form. But the stakes is really tough today.
Well, let me ask you this for Mike before you get in. Do you look at, like Tide of the Sea looked by my amateurish deal here, it looked like he might be one of the lone speeds, maybe. Mm-hmm. Do you still analyze it that way when it goes from the turf to the mud? Or do you think they might be a different tactic now that the change?
It's tough. In this case, yes, because he did show speed last time out on a dirt track. In some cases, and Mike, you can jump in on this one. In some cases, that's not the case. A horse that is fast early on the turf, when they get to the dirt, they may not be fast at all. It's a totally different thing. Usually, dirt speed translates to turf speed, but not the other way around.
Okay.
Well, especially in Naira, too, when you have some of these turf races where the leader's going 50 seconds, 1:15 for the 6 furlongs, and it's a lot more difficult because you're not going to get away with those type of paces on the dirt. In this case, I do agree with Aaron. Tide of the Sea is probably going to be your leader, 47 to the half last time on the dirt, so that makes a ton of sense. It's also a spot where, let me tell you, when you have a bunch of turf horses that tire a lot quicker on dirt than they do on turf, it's not easy to pass anybody going down the lane either. So you want to have the horses on the lead, especially when you are taking 2-turn turf horses and making them 2-turn dirt horses. And so I find days like this, days that you can really take advantage of some bad bets, right? Because the morning line now, and I think it's 5 of the 9 races that are going to be run, is rather irrelevant because it's all made for turf. And so you have a lot of people who will these are the days I think you see the most likely wrong favorites, where horses will go off as a shorter price, and they are not the highest probability to win the race. Generally, the favorite is the highest probability. The odds and the probability may not match up. But in this case, you're going to see horses go off as the favorite that do not have the highest chance to actually win the race.
I think a good example of that could come in the 3rd race, where you have an even money favorite on the turf and Built to Last, who look like a single, in my opinion. Now we're off and we're on the dirt. That even money's still there. They're still going to see that number, and a lot of people will bet that number, even though it's a turf number. And then you've got a horse like the 12 Top Gun Tommy, who isn't great, but has, consistent dirt form. That horse should probably be favored now. I don't think he will be.
You hit the nail on the head too, especially since Built to Last has that race at Aqueduct on February 12th, where you get a 71 buyer over the dirt. People are going to gravitate toward that, see him as speed, and that horse is going to get bet and probably is not your most likely winner. I would agree with you that the 12 is more likely to win the race, yet will not go off as the favorite. I'm actually going to one of the races which came off the turf, and I like a horse at 6-1 in the morning line. We're not going to get 6-1. But I think that specifically the setup really favors this horse based on what is going to happen because that race came off the turf. We'll get into that in a second. Before we do, we're talking about all things sports here. We got some Kevin Durant news. It's been 2 months since he wanted to trade. Obviously, nothing happened. 4 years left on his contract. Papa Dude, are you surprised with the lack of leverage that Kevin Durant had, that this is kind of where we ended up?
Well, I am to a certain extent, but at the same time, I think it's great that the Nets did not budge. It's nice to see that a contract matters. You can't just sign these things and then decide I don't want to play here anymore, because they got you. They got you and nailed him. And, I'm wondering too, just sitting there thinking, and I just came to my head. Are other teams a little bit afraid to trade for him maybe now? He's getting some age on him. He's had injury issues. Could that figure into this a little bit too, that there wasn't a lot of interest in him, maybe?
I think that the teams that would be really interested in him, he doesn't want to go there. And I think there's an amount of fear if you're, let's say you're New Orleans and you trade for him. Let's say you're Oklahoma City and you trade for him. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be happy there for 4 years? Are you going to actually get 4 years of effort from him? Is this going to be something where you're going to be reliving this scenario when his specific asset is worth half of what it was 2 years down the road? You got to be afraid of whether or not you're going to actually get 4 years of Kevin Durant interested in playing. And then you have to factor that into what you're willing to offer. And then if you're Miami or you're Phoenix, you're really going to gut your team for this guy.
Yeah.
And I think the answer is no in both cases, right, Aaron?
Exactly. Yeah. And it is pretty funny. The Nets just kept telling him no. He's like, hey, trade me. They're like, no. They're like, well, fire the GM. No.
Yeah.
Fire the coach. No. Anyway, it's just like, well, we'll shop you. Yeah, we didn't get what we wanted. So you can either sit out or play, whatever you want to do. It was great. I think I'm a Nets fan in that regard, but I also can't root for the Nets because Kevin Durant still plays for him. So it's tough.
Well, I think they're afraid to try. I think other teams are starting to be wary of him because he's done this too many times now.
He's taken a lot of L's for as talented as he is. And I agree. Getting out of Oklahoma City, you want to get away from Westbrook. That makes sense. Okay, but then you end up at Golden State. Publicly took a big time L there just from a perception standpoint. Then decides to hitch his wagon to Kyrie Irving, which is wild. Like I don't understand what the heck you're doing there. No. And now he's the only superstar not able to get away. I mean, you look at every other superstar that wanted out. James Harden has done this twice in the last 3 years. Should have picked up his cell phone, called James Harden, and asked him how to do it because he did it a lot better than you saw Kevin Durant do it. So it's wild to see someone fail in that sense and not be able to force their way out.
Yeah,
it is.
Cool. Now, the other big story here, we got college football kicking off this weekend. I got the Haltermans here who are wild college football fans. We talked a little bit off air. One of the things that we discussed was kind of this NIL situation. Papa, do you want to walk us through quickly where the NIL is at? And is that going to affect how you handicap it all or how you adjust to college football this year?
I don't think it'll affect that for me too much on that. But, being an old school tradition rich guy like I am, going way back before you guys were even born, this is just a disaster for me. And again, I've always been kind of naive. Not really. I know what goes on at these programs, but you always thought the kids were going to school, doing their, going to class, getting their education. Everything was on the up and up. And you kind of bought into that, even though you're down deep. You knew there was some cheating going on. But now it's legal. And it's ruined it. We were talking off air the other day. It's hard enough to recruit now, or back before this, but now, oh my God, you've got guys that are, it's a bidding war almost now. So it is a disaster. I think something is going to have to be done.
It'll be interesting to see how the NFL responds to it once this is in effect for a couple of years. They've long wanted the NCAA to get out of their way anyway, just so that they could kind of have a more brisk pipeline and more access to the players to make sure things don't go wrong through that pipeline to get players back into the NFL. It's going to be interesting what schools stand up here too. One of the things we talked about was what schools have donors that care enough to actually get these players paid. Places like the University of Miami should take a step forward. University of Texas, with quite a few rich people that went there that also care about that football program. Other places may kind of take a step back here. Aaron, are there any programs that you think have a very good chance in this NIL environment and a very bad chance to take a step forward or backward here?
I think USC, Texas A&M, you mentioned Miami. I think places like that it has to be twofold. It has to be you care about football, and it has to be that you have donors that have a ton of money, and those are places that are going to do it. So I think they should rise, and if they don't rise, there's going to be a mutiny. And I think Texas is one for sure where we're seeing, the donors are kind of running the program now. And what's their argument? Well, we paid for these guys. So It's beginning to be a big problem already, and it's just going to get magnitude. We talked about, a place like Syracuse has a lot of rich people that went there, but they don't care about football. So that's still not going to matter as much. I'm interested to see what happens to an Alabama, right? I'm not saying everybody's poor that went to Alabama. Absolutely not. But I don't think they've got the money that some of these other people have, right? So I do think it'll be interesting to see the shift in the programs based on where the money is at. I worry personally about Oklahoma quite a bit. I don't think they have the money to compete with, the top 10 or 15 schools out there that have the biggest financial backing. I think you read between the lines, it's a lot of the reason why Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma. They just he felt like we got to get a better NIL situation. And I think he saw the writing on the wall that the NIL was going to control a lot of where players go. And listen, they're 18-year-old kids. I don't think they're really going to care down deep the name on the front of the jersey if they're paying them enough. So I worry about schools like Oklahoma and Alabama. I really do.
It's going to come down to money and exposure, right? You need to get exposure to get drafted, and you want money because you have value now at this point if you're going to give these NIL contracts out. And that's going to be the key. What schools can give them money? What schools can give them exposure? USC obviously makes a ton of sense from both sides there. And places like Oklahoma could struggle a little bit more because depending on where this shakes out, I mean, obviously being in the SEC will help them out quite a bit from an exposure perspective with that massive SEC deal with CBS. And that's going to come up, I think, in 4 or 5 years. That's going to be crazy, the bidding war that goes on there. But it's going to really force players to make decisions based on their long-term career aspects. And then it'll be something like the LSU quarterback picks up $1 million in cold cash. I'm out. Not going to play. No interest. See you later.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That is hilarious. Another school we talked about, and we'll mention it real quick, is a school like Arkansas, which is sitting down there in Walmart's backyard. And if Walmart decides they really want to get interested in this, and Tyson's is another huge company in Fayetteville's backyard, if those two companies decide they want to throw some money into there, that is a very interesting situation because who can go up against Walmart as far as money goes? Now they may not want to get involved in that, but we'll see.
That would be an interesting one. Oregon is one that just keeps jumping to mind too, because if you can sign these guys to shoe contracts before they're pro, and you're all of a sudden able to throw them money that way, and then you have that Nike money there, man, that is one that in the basketball side could really take off as well. It's another school that you have to look at and think about there. Anyway, that's a little NIL discussion. We're going to talk more about football, especially this weekend. We got college football back on Saturday. I know everyone on this feed cannot wait to start to bet football. I'll be interested to see if Papa Dude continues to ride his hot baseball streak or moves over to football. And with that in mind, Papa Dude, I believe you went 4-1 last week in baseball, which is awfully good, especially with the plus 144 snuck in there. What's your best bet today?
Well, it's a down day for baseball. It really is. Too many heavy favorites today. I looked at a couple, and I kind of don't like this bet a whole lot, but it makes sense. And because you're betting on a team that's iffy. And, we've went over this a million times. But the Rangers are at Colorado today. Two teams very similar, but the pitching matchup strongly favors Texas. And Martin Perez is their ace. He's got good stats, 9.4, 2.80. 4 of his last 5 starts have been excellent. And he's going up against Jose Urena, who came over from Miami and has been terrible with the Rockies. So I like that matchup enough to make that my best bet. I almost went with the Braves -1.5 over Pittsburgh, but you couldn't make much money with that. So stayed out of that one. I also, the Diamondbacks and Royals pitching matchups interesting today. Two aces going at each other. I almost went with the under 7.5, but again, a little iffy for me on two shitty teams. I like this shitty team better than I do the others. So I went with the Rangers minus 130.
Yeah, I like taking that pitching advantage. You mentioned it. Jose Urena, it's been awful at home. 5.12 ERA, 2-3 at home as well. So worse at home than on the road. He's going to be in Coors today. Hopefully he gets beat up early and gets out of that game. We get a nice little win out of the Rangers. Aaron, you're headed to baseball as well. You're going with one of the streaking teams right now. Baltimore Orioles got in a lot of pub. You're gonna take them today to keep it moving.
Yeah, I looked at this, and at Saratoga, you talked about it. It's the prices that I'm really worried about. I don't know how these horses are going to get bet. So for this show specifically, not a great thing. I think it could be a pretty good card today. But yeah, as far as for this show, I just kind of looked at this baseball, and it's like, why are the Orioles the underdogs? That's the deal. Like, this is obviously a pretty even matchup. The White Sox and the Orioles tonight. I mean, very even teams, but you look at the pitching matchup, I think it favors the Orioles slightly. You look at, who's hot right now. I think that favors the Orioles. They're at home. Obviously, that's going to favor them. I just don't think they should be the underdog. So I'll take the plus 100 on them. Last night, the Orioles were able to beat the White Sox 5-3. Like I said, they're two very evenly matched teams. I just don't think that Baltimore should be the underdog. So I'm going to give a shot to the Orioles. Listen, they've got a shot to make the wild card. A lot of motivation here. Like you said it, they're playing great. So hopefully they can keep it going tonight.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Eloy Jimenez, one of the White Sox best players, is in the lineup, got hit with a 102-mile-an-hour fastball on his elbow yesterday. He can just not stay healthy. It's amazing. These fluke injuries that keep running into him this year. So he will probably not. I'd be surprised if he's on the field today, which gives another little edge there to the Orioles there. So that's another one that I think is a good play. I actually almost took the over in that game. I think both of those are blow-up pitchers, where you can see either one of them give up 5 or 6 runs and just get out of hand pretty quickly. And I think the number was 8.5. So I almost went over there.
Yeah, it's 8.5. Yep.
My best bet, I'm going to go to Saratoga. I'm going to race number 6, which is off the turf. And I'm going to go to the 3-horse here. And this is a spot where I didn't love the 3 on the turf. Under Oath, 6-1 in the morning line, has run 3 times on the dirt. He is facing a wildly less difficult field now that this thing is off the turf. And so the last time out, he was overmatched first time against winners at this level on the dirt. Today, he's running against a bunch of turf horses. He's the fastest one of these horses by far in my mind. I'm hoping we get somewhere in the 7-5 range. That's what I would expect on this horse, because you are going to see this horse get bet down, especially with King Angelo come out, the 5 horse, so I thought was going to take some money. But the fact that his time, the 9, the 11 overbore, and the 13 risk profile as an MTO all stay in, I think you're going to get enough money on them that you're still going to get a decent price here on the 3. And Under Oath, I think, is just head and shoulders the best horse in this field. If we're able to improve second off the layoff and run back to either of the first 2 starts, I think he wins by open lengths and gets the job done pretty easily here. Aaron, is this where you ended up on the 6th? Sixth?
Yep, I'm with you. I think this one is either going to be a blowout or he's going to lose and be off the board, because I think he feels a lot like fire and you win type, and if you don't fire, that's how you're going to get beat. I actually think Pletcher got a break with both of the 6th and the 7th races coming off, because I think his horse in the 7th, the number 8 Princess Spur, I think the horse is better on the dirt as well. And I think even you say, hey, oh, well, I think it's better at turf horse, but that dirt rate was solid, and some of these others are just not great on the dirt that he's going to have to go up against today. So I think Pletcher got a big break with those 2 horses coming off. I like them both. I like yours more because the field that this 3 is facing Under Oath, it is brutal in a good way for Under Oath and a bad way for the rest of these horses. I was with you. This is another one. I did not have Under Oath anywhere mentioned when this race was on the turf. It comes off and it's like, well, as long as he shows up, he's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it's just all about price and what we're able to get. I'm hoping that I would be very surprised if we're under 4-5. I'm hoping we're getting that 6-5, 7-5 range because of some of the other horses that actually stayed in here. Now, one thing we adjusted this week, we are now going to work, instead of units, we're going to go with $100 bets. So we went back and adjusted all the bets so that we could take track of everything based on $100 betting units. So, Papa Dude playing minus 130, that's 130 to win 100. That's how we'll track moving forward. And then on the horse side, everything will be a $100 bet. So I have $100 to win no matter what the odds are there on the 3 horse in the 6th race at Saratoga. And with that in mind, let's take a look at the record so far, guys. We are 76-68 for the year, only 8 over 500. but up $2,475 off $100 units in those plays because of Magic's plus 175, Papa Dude plus 144, Aaron and I playing some 4-1 shots they've gotten home. So the money is going well there. We're going to have to try and keep that moving. We will have to do a Canadian exchange if Magic keeps playing these CFL games. But the picks for today, Aaron going with the Orioles plus 100, Papa Dude taking the Rangers minus 130. I'm headed to Saratoga. I'm going to play the number 3 horse Under Oath in the 6th race, 6-1 on the morning line. We're going to get more like 6-5. But I think that he absolutely romps. Hopefully we can start out hot here. We were 12-5 last week, up over $1,000. So hopefully we can keep it rolling. Guys, thanks for joining me. We'll see you again tomorrow. And we're going to have some football very, very, very soon for y'all. Everyone, take care.